Allow me to introduce myself. So my name is Gudmund Jonsson, or Gudmund, so to make it a little bit easy for you to get your tongue around my Icelandic name. I have the great pleasure of being the head of college at Dulwich College, Seoul. And it's a real honour to welcome each and every one of you here today in this beautiful, refurbished Aston Hall, which is looking simply fantastic. I want to thank all of our esteemed guests from such diverse backgrounds in coming here today and supporting today's important topic around how foreign schools, like Dulwich College Seoul and other schools present here today, of course, help make Seoul a more attractive proposition for foreign direct investment. I'd like to thank sincerely the British Embassy for hosting us here today, BCCK and Lucinda Walker helping us organise this event with us, and Sean Blakely, and our partners, of course, the ECCK, the KGCCI and the ESCCK. We are truly, truly grateful for your support. We also have two more distinguished foreign schools joining us as partners today. We have Dwight School Seoul, and we also have Seoul Foreign School. We have educators, expat parents, business leaders, and also local government officials that we are truly grateful for you all in joining us here today. Now, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about Dulwich College Seoul for those of you who are not familiar with our school. Our school was founded back in 2010. We are located in the Banpo region, centrally located just by the Han River, a wonderful location. And we have, I guess, what you could characterize as an inner city campus. It's very compact, we're very creative with our use of space. And we have 700 students ranging from the ages of 3 all the way to 18 years old. Now, our mother school, if you like, Dulwich College, located in SE21 in London, is rather more older than us. They were founded in 1619, so they have a little bit more history than us. And we also have sister schools in China and one in Singapore as well. So of the 700 students, we have about 46 nationalities as we last counted. And we're one of the few foreign schools located in the Gangnam area. And it's interesting to note that more than 40% of the total of 3,731 foreign companies listed at Seoul are actually based in that part of the city. Now I'm going to pass over to my distinguished colleague, Director of Business Administration, Paul Smith. He is going to be our MC for today and give you an overview of the program. So very welcome to you all. Paul.
Thank you very much, Commander. I've been nominated as your MC today, but I want to warn you, this is the first time I've MC'd an event since I was 18 years old and I did a talent contest. So things may not go entirely to plan. And in fact, we're already off by about 5 minutes. So let me just quickly run through a few things. One, for housekeeping, the translation is channel 1 for Korean and channel 2 for English. That's correct, yes. And if there should be a fire, everybody go out the way we came in, out the back door and up the stairs. And toilets are the same direction, but right out the back. So I want to thank all of you for coming to this focused policy roundtable on the relationship between foreign direct investment and international education. This is a conversation that has happened at other networking events here at the embassy, at other functions, at workshops on FDI, on tax policy, and it's just a fantastic opportunity to get everyone together related to the stakeholders to have a focused conversation today. So the objective of the day is to have a really thoughtful, focused discussion on the insights and experience and vision for leveraging power of education to drive sustainable investment into Seoul. Today we're going to be in 3 parts: an initial welcome and kickoff from our host, the British Embassy, and then we will have remarks by the Seoul Metropolitan Government, and then a policy presentation from Invest Seoul. We'll jump into 3 really interesting panels, discussions. The first panel is made up of the school leaders from each of the international schools that are represented today. The second panel will be made up of people that we call parents, the parents of our children at our school. But for foreign direct investment, this is the global talent that leads and spearheads global investment into the country. So it will be a very interesting conversation. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with a panel that is the business and trade chambers of commerce. And then of course we're going, most importantly, we're going to conclude with a fantastic reception in the residence where the ambassador will make some remarks, as well as a representative from the Seoul National Assembly and the Seoul Metropolitan Council. So everybody look forward to the drinks and refreshments at the, this is one of the best things the British Embassy does in this town, so please stay around for this. So let me just jump right into it. Tony Clemson, who I'm going to read his biography so I don't miss anything. Tony is the country director of business and trade at the British Embassy in Seoul. Tony's role is to improve the trade and investment environment wherever possible, support UK companies interested in investing in Korea, as well as Korean companies interested in investing in Seoul. He has served in China from 2016 to 22, initially as the Deputy Consul General in Shanghai, and later as Deputy Director of Technology and Industry in the Department of International Trade. So, no further ado, welcome Tony for
Good afternoon, everybody. Very warm welcome to the British Embassy. This is an historic event. You're the first external event that we've held in this newly refurbished Aston Hall, so I hope you all appreciate the significance of today. It's wonderful to welcome people from so many different and diverse sectors, with government, business, chambers, schools, local government. All together in one place. I'd like to recognise from Seoul Metropolitan Government, Director General Jong Yong-jul, Head of Investment Moon Chong-ho, Assistant Deputy Director Park Se-jun, and then from Invest Seoul we'll hear later from Manager Hwon Yang-ji, Head of the Investment Strategy Team, and also from the National Assembly we have Chief Policy Aide of Representative Kim In-sok, we have Lee Eun-hye. So it's wonderful to have so many distinguished guests here this afternoon, and I know you're all very, very busy. This issue is one that's very close to my heart. I'm a father of 4 children. I know you can't tell, I look very young. I've been travelling the world for more than 20 years, and so I fully understand the importance of having good international schools when I'm choosing a location that I want to move my family to for 4 years or so at a time. We're also here to talk about how to attract foreign direct investment, and really in recent years Korea is a tremendous success story. Last year we could see that the Korean economy fully recovered from COVID-19 pandemic, posting a record year for attracting foreign direct investment, $32 billion. And I think when we look at the regional and geopolitical changes that are going on at the moment, it really highlights the attractiveness of Korea as a stable, open, democratic country that shares our values of freedom and human rights. So I think there is a lot more that we can do together. The relationship between Korea and the UK has never been stronger. Building on the state visit of President Yoon Suk-yeol to the UK last November, hosted by King Charles, it was a tremendous success. President Yoon signed the Downing Street Accord with the UK Prime Minister, and this really elevates the UK-Korea relationship to a historic high. And this year, we're really looking to drive forward that agreement in key areas of foreign policy, defence, security, but also trade, energy, climate change, science. We're upgrading our free trade agreement, and we're also looking to deliver the announcement of £21 billion of investment from Korea into the UK. If we look at UK into Korea, we are the second largest investor in Korea from Europe. And UK companies really represent the full spectrum of finance, insurance, consulting, pharmaceuticals, consumer chemicals. Increasingly, green energy is playing an important role. But I think it's really important to recognise the education sector. It is important for trade and investment. I also firmly believe in the power of education, more than anything else, to bring people together from different countries, to deepen cultural understanding, and to build bridges between countries for the long term. There's some fantastic British schools here, providing diverse education opportunities to foreign and domestic students in Seoul and across the countries. These schools support the foreign companies, foreign communities, but they also improve the attractiveness of Korea to international businesses and firms. And so in this context, I think today's event is significant, and I'm delighted the British Embassy can be a platform for this. Thank you to Dulwich College for initiating this. Thank you to members of foreign schools, embassies, chambers of commerce, businesses, parents coming together, Seoul city government, metropolitan government coming together. I think it's a shared commitment to improving the education environment and fostering a positive atmosphere for more foreign investment in Seoul. And I think this kind of multi-stakeholder platform will really help. And it's great that we'll hear first-hand experiences from parents as well later on this afternoon. So I'd like to finish by wishing you a very successful event today, engaging discussions, fruitful collaborations, and as Paul said, hope you enjoy the drinks at the Ambassador's residence this evening as well.
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you for me for getting us back on schedule. All right, so our next speaker is Jeong Yong-jun, the Director General of the Economy and Employment Planning Bureau at the Seoul Metropolitan Government. The SMG is an absolutely critical stakeholder in terms of sites and regulations and attracting investment into Seoul, but also plays a role of our enabling environment. So we look forward to the presentation.
I'm sorry I can't speak English well, so I speak in Korean. 반갑습니다. 저는 서울시 경제정책실 경제일자리계획관 정영준입니다. 제가 영국에서 2년을 공부를 했는데 오랜만에 이 영국 영어를 들으니까 아주 친숙하면서도 아주 즐겁습니다. FDI와 글로벌 교육에 관한 정책 간담회 개최를 진심으로 축하드립니다. 서울시의 FDI 확대와 교육 환경의 중요성을 논의하는 뜻깊은 자리를 마련해 주시고 저를 초청해 주신 주한 영국 대사관님과 외국인 학교 교장 선생님들을 비롯한 관계자 여러분께 감사의 말씀을 전합니다. 유서 깊은 주한 영국 대사관에서 축사를 드리게 되어 매우 뜻깊게 생각합니다. 지금 제가 서 있는 대사관 건물은 조선시대, 대한제국, 그리고 대한민국 역사를 고스란히 지켜본 유서 깊은 건물입니다. 대한민국의 건국과 한국전쟁, 한국의 기적을 모두 지켜보며 대한민국의 시작과 발전을 겪어오면서 서울의 외교 역사를 고스란히 간직한 곳이라고 생각합니다. 오늘날 서울시는 투자하고 싶고 기업하기 좋은 도시를 만들기 위해 다양한 정책을 수립하고 노력하고 있습니다. 특히 외국인 직접 투자를 본격적으로 유치하려는 의지로 2022년 인베스트 서울을 출범하였고 글로벌 기업들이 서울 투자를 정리하기 위해 해외 자본 유치 유망 기업을 선정하여 해외 투자자와 매칭하고 서울을 진출하는 글로벌 기업에게 준비 단계부터 정상 영업까지 FDI 올인원 패키지를 지원하고 있습니다. 또한 서울시는 오래전부터 글로벌 기업의 투자 유치를 위한 외국인 정주 환경 개선에 관심을 기울이고 있으며 2010년 덜위치 서울 영국 학교를 2012년에는 서울 드와이트 외국인 학교를 유치하는 등 외국인 자녀의 교육 환경 개선을 위해 지속적으로 노력하고 있습니다. 오늘 정책 간담회에서는 서울시의 외국인 투자 환경에 관한 생생한 의견을 나누고 특히 외국인 자녀의 교육 환경을 비롯한 서울시의 투자 및 거주 환경이 나아가는 방향성에 대해 함께 고민해보는 계기를 마련할 수 있을 것으로 기대합니다. 서울시는 교육, 금융, 생활환경 분야에 탁월한 조건을 갖춘 글로벌 금융도시 런던을 벤치마킹하여 외국인이 투자할 수 있는 환경을 조성하고 무엇보다 외국인 학교 교육의 질을 향상시켜 나가도록 노력하겠습니다. 존경하는 콜린 크루스 대사님, 학부모님, 그리고 투자자 여러분, 여러분이 보유하신 교육, 금융, 그리고 글로벌 인재 체험과 관련된 우수한 노하우를 매력적인 서울을 위하여 아낌없이 투자해 주시기 당부드립니다. 저는 오늘 간담회에서 논의된 내용들을 참고하여 외국인 학교를 비롯한 외국인 투자 환경에 세심하게 관심을 기울여 외국인이 투자하고 싶은 서울을 만들 수 있도록 열심히 노력하겠습니다. 여기 모인 여러분 모두가 행복한 시간 보내기를 바랍니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much. Thank the Seoul Metropolitan Government for the support in setting up Dulwich College. Our next speaker is already referenced the Invest Seoul, which is the special agency set up by Seoul Metropolitan Government. And this will be Kwon Yin-ji, manager of the investment strategy team.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Regina Yang-ji Kwon from Invest Seoul, responsible for overseas investment on behalf of Seoul Metropolitan City. So today, I would like to start with my sincere gratitude to invite me here to the British Embassy, UCCK, and Dulwich College. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to introduce Invest Seoul. So as Seoul is becoming a globally attractive place to visit and live, foreign resident number has reached about 400,000, showing constant growth and recovery from COVID-19. So it is about 4% of all the total citizens of Seoul and 1/5 of all the foreign residents living in Korea. So as a citizen of mega city like Seoul, 400,000 doesn't seem too large to me at first, but this is actually a larger number than the city of Manchester in UK, and also the larger number in Zurich, Switzerland. So yeah, this is huge number, and it is only expected to grow in the further future. So I truly believe that this event is indeed timely and essential. So today I'm going to talk about what we do to attract FDI in Seoul, our successful cases, and status of foreign schools in Korea and Seoul. So along with that, I'm going to talk about, and along with that, of course, I'm going to talk about Invest Seoul, but I'm also thrilled to hear from your side, expats and their families in Korea, your daily lives in Seoul and your educational experience in Seoul. So okay, so let's start with a short video of Invest Seoul.
One-stop investment support center for Seoul, Invest Seoul. Established in 2022, Invest Seoul is a foreign investment promotion agency, creating friendly environment and offering one-stop service for foreign investors expanding to Seoul. Invest Seoul holds representative annual events such as Seoul Investors Forum to build a bridge between global investors and Korean companies. We make an effort to enhance global competitiveness of startups in Seoul by selecting and fostering core 100 companies to attract foreign investment for promising companies. For foreign companies that invest in Seoul, Seoul City Government can designate foreign investment zone to provide rental support. What's more, City also provides cash grant and employment training subsidies, tailor-made to each FDI company. On top of incentives provided by Seoul Government, Invest Seoul provides additional support through FDI all-in-one package. From establishment of office to investment reporting, management support consulting, and settlement support. The whole process is supported all at once. Also, we provide investment feasibility examination, foreign direct investment procedure, and incentive information. Furthermore, we support the investors to find partner and provide other consultation service, such as legal or tax.
Consider Seoul as your next strategic location.
We prepare your innovation and success together. As a reliable partner of foreign investors and companies, start in Seoul, grow with, invest Seoul.
Thank you for watching. So the video was pretty much self-explanatory. I'm just going to make this really short and help our MC here. Thank you. So InvestSol is an investment promotion agency established in 2022 by Seoul Metropolitan Government with the goal to achieve foreign direct investments of $30 billion by 2030. So our main role is to attract foreign companies, regional headquarters, unicorn companies, as well as financial investments to Seoul. So in order to do so, we strive to make Seoul a reliable place to do business, and improving living conditions for the expats and their families is also one of them. So these are the incentive packages, all-in-one package mentioned by our director. These are the incentives by Seoul Metropolitan City. So if you are interested in those incentive packages, please let me know afterwards. I'll be happy to answer. But for now, I'm going to speak about the FDI's status in Seoul and compared with Korea overall. So thanks to the dedication of InvestSol members and support from the Seoul Metropolitan Government, we were able to attract $14 billion in investment in 2023. So this is 30% higher than 2022, and this growth rate is nearly 5 times higher than the South Korea's overall FDI, which reached $32 billion last year, with 7.5% increase from the previous year. So Seoul accounts for 45% of South Korea's FDI, and almost 90% of the finance and insurance investment has arrived to the city of Seoul. If you compare the investments by industries, finance, ICT, retail are the strongest sectors in Seoul. And our investment has risen steeply in electronics in 2023 due to the massive investment from the battery manufacturing. Let me share a few successful cases of a global company expansion in Korea. In 2022, at the Seoul Investors Forum, Netflix decided to establish a VFX studio in Seoul. So we signed MOU with the I-Line studio, and this investment will be made over the next 5 years, which is expected to create jobs for at least 200 local VFX artists. And last year, #1 Danish wind turbine company Vestas agreed to move their regional headquarters to Seoul from Singapore, reporting $300 billion investments. Through this, Vestas plans to strengthen cooperation with Korean turbine materials and part companies to participate in various wind power projects from Korean government. So these are the living environments and number of foreign schools in Korea. I'll start with the living environments in Korea. So compared with many major cities abroad, Korea's living conditions are very stable and a great place to live and raise children. In terms of our country's safety index, Korea is placed #3 in Asia, surpassing other major countries, and the crime rate is being one of the lowest in the world. So, I mean, I was pretty shocked to find out that not many places in the world use their cell phone to save their seats in the cafe. Normally in Korea, it's my phone and my seat, but some places in the world it means like it's everybody's phone and no phone at the end. So yeah, it's pretty privileged in Korea to experience those. And hospitals and clinics in Korea almost always accept walk-in patients who are sick. And I took it for granted and didn't realize it was an advantage until I lived abroad. Cost of living expense in Korea has actually risen steeply in recent years, surpassing Tokyo for the first time last year. So I prepared this slide because I was very confused. For me, it was very confusing by the terms and different ways to call so-called foreign schools in Korea. So there are 3 types of foreign schools existing in Korea, and it is called foreign educational institutions, foreign schools, and Jeju international schools, depending on their bonding laws. So all those schools in Seoul is considered foreign schools, which are established to provide suitable education to children from other countries and also Korean children who has lived and returning from the abroad. So the biggest difference among those 3 types of schools are the locations. Foreign schools can actually be established anywhere in Korea, whereas the other 2 schools has to be located in specific places. And when accepting Korean students, foreign educational institutes and Jeju international schools can accept, but foreign schools can only accept Korean students who lived abroad for more than 3 years. And these are the number of foreign schools in Korea. So the Seoul has most foreign schools compared with any other places. In Seoul, there are 19 of them, including Dulwich College in Seoul, in Gangnam. And there are 6 of them in Gyeonggi. In Incheon, there are 8 of them, but 5 of them are branches of universities. So actually, you can say there are 3 foreign schools in Incheon. So these are the 19 schools of Seoul. So Seoul actually is the most suitable place to educate your children in Korea with the options to study based on your nationalities as well. However, it is also true that our neighboring cities like Tokyo, Beijing, Shanghai has more options than Seoul. So as I said in the beginning, I believe today's event is both timely and essential. And I hope that our healthy discussions result in outcomes that will strengthen Seoul's competitiveness as a global city, and also benefit students and families' daily lives in Korea. So thank you very much, and I'll be looking forward to hear from you.
Thank you very much for that fantastic presentation. Our panel discussions, I just wanted to take a couple of points. I think very much our school's success is very much aligned with Seoul Invest and SMG's success in terms of the more investment that is attractive to more students that of course will come to Seoul. This year was the largest influx of foreign residents to Seoul. Dulwich College certainly has a waiting list on most of our classes, and I know other foreign schools do in Seoul. So this is really the right time to have this conversation to see how we can work together to increase the provision of international education. So for our first panel today is going to be the leaders of the international schools in Seoul. My good friend Guðmundur Jónsson, who's the head of Dulwich College Seoul. He's originally from Iceland. He's lived and worked internationally for more than 20 years in countries like the UAE, China, Serbia, and many others. Before joining Dulwich, he was the director of the United World College in Norway. And Joe, also my good friend, director of public relations at Dwight School, my fellow co-chair of the Amcham Education Committee, board of George Mason University, and extensive experience in education. And Cyril Bazin is the Director of Communications and Marketing at Seoul Foreign School, an international school, and her experience extends to international schools in Riga, Latvia, and Shanghai. So a tremendous wealth of industry knowledge and experience here to have a great conversation. The panel is going to be monitored by a well-known and respected figure in the international business community, and often on time, Sean Crumley.
Who wrote that?
Sean has 15 years of experience in Seoul. He's the CEO of the British Chamber of Commerce. He's a partner in PwC and recently led an extremely important study into the international schools market in Seoul. And I can express that Sean is extremely lenient when you're late with your bills to PwC. It's much appreciated. So if the panel and the moderator would come up to join.
Hello. So first of all, thank you for the kind introduction. I think it seems to be written by my mom. so thank you very much. So yeah, so my name's Sean. I'm part of the I'm also the chair of the British Chamber, and I've been here for over 15 years. And actually, I studied in Korea. So sometimes I'm going to Manchester. So I know a little bit about also Korean education, and actually. When you speak to Koreans about education, I think you have to be very careful. The reason why is Koreans are super educated, and actually their education system is absolutely fantastic. So we're not here today to preach to people who know the value of education. We know that Korea knows the value of education. I think the essence of this topic is where do the international schools start to get some support in order to actually allow for Korea to improve its already great FDI numbers, right? And actually my role today is to moderate. I think you called me a monitor.
Okay.
Yeah, so I will also monitor, because it's my chance, for once, to be the school teacher. And I consider these guys today to be my pupils. So,
Let's sit a little straighter right now.
Time-wise, I think we're a little bit early, right?
Yeah,
So we have a little bit of time. Okay.
Roll away.
Yeah. So on this topic, as I already mentioned, the key that we want to discuss is what role do the schools play in terms of encouraging FDI. We actually just finished a report, as Paul said, on this exact topic, and it's a fascinating topic. Why? Because actually, as you might imagine, I think the answer is going to be a very prominent role, amongst other variables. This is a key variable. A key variable to who? To decision makers to decide where to invest. Where are they currently investing? Statistically, a lot of people have invested in Hong Kong or in Singapore. So Korea has an opportunity here, and this is the way we see it. So it'd be great today to focus on this area, on what is the opportunity, what is the role, and then how do we get there, together in partnership. So first of all, I think you've had your introductions, but it would be great if you guys can just tell a little bit about the school and a little bit about also your roles. And maybe we can begin with Gudmundur, work our way this way.
Thank you, Sean. Well, I gave a brief introduction of the school when I welcomed you all, so I'll give time to my colleagues.
Well, I'm so happy to be here this afternoon with both men and women. So I think Paul introduced, my name is Anne Cho. I'm the Director of Public Relations and Communications at Dulwich School Seoul. Dulwich School was founded in 2012, offering all three programs of the IB for students PS3 to grade 12. And we're located in the digital media city, actually the entertainment and the media hub of Korea. And Dulwich is also part of a global network of Dulwich schools that was founded in 1872 in the heart of New York City. And we also have campuses in London, Shanghai, Dubai. We also have online school for performing artists and athletes. And we have a new campus opening up this August in Hanoi, Vietnam.
I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing at Seoul Foreign School. I'm happy to see that many familiar faces here today, a lot of Seoul Foreign School parents, that's really good. SMS was founded in 1912. Hopefully we don't look a day older than 25, but yeah, we've been here for a very long time. Our school is a non-profit independent school that was founded for foreign students at the time, and we continue that throughout our history. We are located in Yeonnidong, up the hill. It's a very nice campus, and we have a student population of 1,600.
Thank you very much. So that's welcome to the panelists, and thank you for the introduction. So I think the first sort of simple kick-off, and maybe we'll begin here and go the opposite way this time, is I would imagine when someone's deciding where to go and whether they're going to be shipped, or sent by their company, dispatched to a market. I know that there are a number of experts here. Often they do a pre-screening, they do some research, they Google, they look at the schools. I'm sure that they get in touch with your admissions teams or yourselves. So I just want to maybe begin here. Is that the case? And then if it is the case, what is it that the typical questions you tend to feel? And what is your impression of how people are perceiving Korea as an option in terms of those early stage decision-making and research around schooling?
I might need you to repeat, in increments, that question. There's no way I remember all of this. Well, yes, to answer your question, yes, of course. One of the very first things when a family, one of the first things they think about when relocating to places, of course, where the children are going to go to school. So we get a lot of inquiries, a lot of questions about what kind of education we provide, and very often we also are in touch with a lot of the embassies and a lot of the companies, the hubs, to ask if we have the capacity to welcome the children. And one of the first questions, of course, that any parent would ask is the kind of curriculum that we provide, the type of environment that we provide. A lot of the families are expat families and are meant to go from one place to another, going back to their home country, then back again. So the type of curriculum that we have is very important. At SFS, we are a full IB school, so from pre-K2 to grade 12, but we also have a British section that runs at the primary level. So we are very lucky that we are able to provide to a very diverse type of students.
I think that's already very good.
Yeah, okay, great.
So maybe then developing on that, those are the types of inquiries that you're receiving. What about the UN? Do you then think that based on those types of inquiries, the fact that you're one of the first ports of call that when people are making those decisions, that schools are indeed important to FDI decision making?
I absolutely think so, of course, because me and my husband went there many years back, and when we were thinking about moving here, we had to look at the different schools that were available for our children. Because as a parent, I think having that international, exceptional international educational experience is something that we have to consider as number one priority. And so I think that's what parents do think about, and I think, I'm sure there are a lot of multinational companies represented here this afternoon, and I think they do think about, when the employees are looking at a city to bring their families to, one natural thing for parents to consider is having an exceptional educational opportunity. And that's what we do deal with at Dwight. And Dwight is a small school. We have a capacity set at 540, and thanks to my wonderful admissions team back there, we are at full capacity. And as you mentioned before, the population is growing, and we do have families, and we have families with multiple children that we can't accommodate all of them because of the regulations. And I'm sure I'm not going to talk about that just yet, but yes.
Yeah, I'm just echoing my colleagues, absolutely. And as a father of two children, recognizing the huge importance that the nature of the school that you're choosing to send your children to, availability of places, the nature of the educational programs. And of course we see that at Dulwich going solved very extensively in terms of the inquiries that we get. Education is absolutely a critical factor, also in terms of our conversation with companies, in terms of their talent acquisition, making sure that they're finding the right fit for their employees, their prospective employees, and which school they can be, their children can actually get places at. But of course, that's also one of the issues, I think, here in Seoul, is that there is a limited number of places across the schools and waiting lists across multiple year groups. So I think that is also one of the challenges. But it's also interesting to see here in Seoul, in Korea, that we've seen there's an index called the Carney's Global Cities Index, where Seoul actually ranks 13th and 14th based on the number of foreign schools across the city, which is interesting. So it'd be interesting to see how, and hopefully, that will improve over the coming years as the number of companies increase their presence or choose to increase their presence here in Seoul going forward. And again, there's a survey, the Seoul survey, serving as a primary data source in establishing Seoul's policies, which they survey annually about 2,500 foreigners, and of course that's changing every year, of course. But in 2023, foreigners say their children's education as the #1 challenge in terms of living in Seoul, so that's another interesting point as well. And of course, yeah, hugely important. We see that in all our conversations, whether it be with parents themselves or with companies, etc. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So actually you stole my next 2 questions. So therefore the student has already surpassed the teacher. So this is very, very good. So then because of that, I'm going to ask you to elaborate just on one point. So you mentioned, it's interesting because I think when we did our research, one of the key decision-making points of entering a market, particularly as an employee but also as an investor, meaning people that are making corporate decisions back home, is schooling, because the parents want that, but also the employers want that for their employees who are sending their family members, and you guys are here. So, and then when they come here, it is also their biggest challenge. So prior to coming, it's their biggest priority. They come, and then it's their biggest challenge. And one of them, I think, as you mentioned, is places, right? And having availability. I think compounding that, we have the great success of Seoul as a city with all of its investment going up, which I would assume doesn't automatically relate to bringing tons of expats over, but you still see high proportions of expats coming over with these investments. And to give you an example, we have a project now where 100 employees will be coming with their families over the next 4 years to a particular area in Seoul. And actually the key thing is, how do we get these kids? There's about 300 kids coming. That's, I guess, the challenge. How do we work on that? And also maybe to begin, what role does an event like this have in working on this type of challenge?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think inevitably, that has to be, I think the key here is the relationships that the schools have with their government regulators, etc., and with government, offices of government that obviously pertain to education. I think that's really important in developing close partnerships to be able to facilitate and develop that landscape, that educational landscape and framework, so that the increase, the anticipated increase that's coming in over the next few years is accommodated through being able to find places within the international school market. So I think that's going to be really key, that relationship, very, very important. And so of course, we see the event here today as one small stepping stone in furthering that relationship, and also I think in terms of just educating people around what actually is it that the international schools are actually doing within Seoul. I think that's also really important. Because as you stated earlier, Sean, it's not about us preaching to other people about the wonders that international education or about the strength of international education. Of course, we all firmly believe in the schools that we run. And the wonderful impact it has on our children. But of course, we also have a lot to learn from the Korean schools as well, and from Korean educators. And so we, for example, in our context, we're slowly but surely trying to build those links with Korean schools in our neighborhood. And so we really want to build on that as well.
And great answer, and also you bridged my next question, so you completely made up for stealing my own too. And that is a good point, because actually we're here today and we're referring a lot to expatriates that are coming, but actually the schools are of course in Korea, and they're very connected to the local community. So I think, and you already spoke a little bit about this identity of where you're based. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about the Korean elements of your school, and not purely on the sort of expat contribution.
Our school is allowed by the government for us to have 30% of our student population being Korean citizens. We receive 1,095 25 days, and we are very strict about, of course, we have to follow eligibility requirements.
What if it's 1,094 days?
Oh, is it?
No, what it is, it doesn't.
So I think in terms of the Korean element, because of those students, I think it's mutually beneficial that our foreign students learn so much from the Korean counterpart, as well as our Korean students learn so much about different cultures and even language. I mean, our school, yes, we all operate in English, but we allow multilingualism to, go on, and of course we encourage that because that's one of the IB, because we run the IB program, yes. And our students are also very engaged with the external community. For instance, I think some of the upper school students, they realize the difficulties of single mothers face, the social challenge. That's a very sensitive social issue that is not as well addressed in Korea, and it is still a kind of like a shunned subject, and I've met quite a few of those moms. And our students took the initiative to do fundraising every year, and they will raise funds and they'll do toy drives to provide such things for these single moms and their families. And another group of young women, they also wanted to tackle the issue of period poverty. I don't know if you are familiar with that. So our students were like shocked that in a modern city like Korea, where it is the most well-connected city in the world, there is this period poverty where young girls are unable to go to school because they lack the sanitary items during their monthly, menstrual cycle. So they were like, oh, we thought this kind of stuff only happened in third world countries, and our children really learned about that, through also working with the Salvation Army.
What about yourselves? Because you've been here now since 1912, you said, so that's a long time, and so I'm sure you're well integrated into the local community. So maybe do you have examples of what you're doing with the local Korean community?
Sure. At SFS and all the international schools, I think there is sometimes that misconception that international schools are their own silos. And to be fully transparent, I've been to other international schools where you get that feeling that the school could be transported anywhere else in the world and that would not feel any different. And I know for a fact that the international schools in Seoul, and I know from experience that SFS is very different because we're very much rooted into the Korean society and to the local community. And the notion of service and giving back is embedded into our mission, and that is something that we take very seriously. We have a lot of examples similar to what Anne says, but at every level at every grade level, our students are engaging in service activities. We have about 300 different organizations that we work with, and we fully believe one of the first questions one of the reasons why we exist and we do all of those things that we always ask ourselves is, if SFS was to disappear tomorrow, would Seoul and the local community notice? And we very much want this answer to yes. So it is absolutely important for us, and we are fully aware of the privileged situation of our students. So we really want to embed into our students that giving back and working with local communities is absolutely important. So every single day there is some kind of fundraiser or service trips or actions that our students engage in. One other way that we found was very important to give back is transferring our experience and sharing our experience in the IB curriculum with local schools. I'm sure you're all aware of the investment that the SMOE is making into developing IB in a lot of public schools, and we've had that project that we call the IB Korea project at SFS. We've been implementing the DP for over 40 years, so we've had a lot of experience, and particularly teaching the DP to Korean students. So we've opened the doors and organized trainings, observations for local teachers that teach at public schools to come and see how our teachers teachers operate, how we teach the IB, and learn from them. So it's a very beneficial exchange of knowledge, and that's something that we've been very proud of.
Yeah, and I think the word there, the key word is exchange, right? This is a two-way relationship. So I wonder then, Goodman, just on extending onto that point, related to the IB program, because I know Dulwich is really nestled within that Gangnam community, within really integrated. But then what about your experience in terms of how receptive schools have been to the type of learning that you are conducting, and also, you know, how interesting you found the type of learning that those schools are also conducting? Because I guess that exchange, as you mentioned, is happening, you know, maybe on a daily basis for you, especially integrated in the community. So what's your experience of that?
It's been really wonderful, and of course, I mean, I came to Korea as COVID was exploding, you know, and of course that presented a challenge in terms of being able to build those kinds of links. But we have eventually managed to, as thankfully the pandemic receded and those restrictions have gone away. And of course, during that time, we were very, very grateful for the support we received from local government in keeping our community safe. It was quite extraordinary. I think we were very privileged to be here in Seoul and in Korea, and to have been supported in the way that we were. So for example, there's an elementary school on our road. I think we have about 4 schools in our neighborhood, Kaesong Elementary School. And it's been extraordinary reaching out to them, and they've been so receptive. Us going into their school, you know, having visitors, students and stuff coming into our school. And their program is just quite extraordinary. And their focus, their fascinating focus on Korean heritage and Korean culture, whether it be theatre, drama, music, etc., the arts, their creative focus is just extraordinary. We have a lot to learn from them. And we also had, in similar kinds of ways, Syria, we also are supporting, you know, with the IB, we recognise that the Korean government's focus on the international baccalaureate with Korean education. And so, for example, we had a workshop at our school recently where we had over 300 local teachers come and attend workshops within our school, which was really exciting and thrilling, and that also gave the opportunity for us to be able to engage in that kind of dialogue with them. And we recognise the fact that, you know, I think for any healthy school community, such as our schools here represented today, you know, the community is so important, whether it be community for our teachers, for our students, for our parents. It's vitally, vitally important. And thankfully we've now been able to, as I say, after coming out of the pandemic, on a weekly basis there is so much going on that provides so much opportunity for learning and giving back as well, in so many different kinds of ways, which is really, really exciting. And makes my job so, I feel so privileged to do what I do.
Okay, yeah, and I think as you said, you know, there's the local community, but also there are a number of stakeholders that I guess that you guys are working with, whether that's local government, embassies, you know, chambers, and of course, actually, each other. So maybe this question actually, Glenn, is how can you explain some of those dynamics and relationships that, you know, as you are a school, how do you work with the local government, or maybe if you pick an example, the embassies or chambers, and also each other, because in some senses you may compete, but in many senses I think you're unified in this message. So I'm curious, pick one of those, and you just tell us how that dynamic works.
Okay, so I think one time when Cyril and Namju, the three of us were at an event together, and somebody actually came over and said, "Oh, frenemies, or are you guys enemies?" And my response was, we believe in the Blue Ocean strategy where we can all coexist, because, you know, I think when somebody says Dulwich or SFS or Dwight, it is because they find the fit for their child. And I think that is the most important thing. So I think even like today we're here together collaborating and trying to, you know, kind of go through, kind of have that discussion with the same objective and goal in mind. So I would never call her my friend, but my friend. So, but this has happened multiple times, right? And so, yes, I think there's still a lot of room left for us to collaborate and cooperate as we work on the FDI topic.
And just then on that FDI topic, right, this is something, you know, that you guys are looking at daily, and I wonder, you know, how much does this occupy the space of your leadership? You're looking at, I think you, of course, you know, principally you want to provide a great education. You want to increase your numbers. The more students that receive the education, the better, right? It's a non-profit, it's not a money-driven approach. If you do that and foreign direct investment increases, that's great for the country and the community. So I wonder, you know, how much FDI I think is in the mind of Invest Seoul every day. How much do you guys talk about it? What do you think you can do to help these guys?
At the leadership level, we talk about that all the time because we are here to provide a service and to provide a service to the community, but also to the companies who choose to come and invest in Seoul. And you know, as you said, we want to have healthy numbers to make sure, you know, as a non-profit, because that's very important. But at the very moment, very similarly to your schools, we are at an all-time high in terms of enrollment. We had 1,600 3 years back. There were 300 less students. So the numbers are growing and growing. The number of inquiries are growing and applications. And as you know, it's becoming very competitive. Admissions is becoming very competitive, and we simply do not have the space. And companies don't always have the luxury. Families who work for companies moving to Seoul don't always have the luxury to apply a year in advance. And sometimes you're being told that you're moving to different countries a month in advance, and we are not always able to accommodate those families because we simply do not have the space in the group. So it's heartbreaking that, you know, because a lot of families simply cannot go to a school that operates in Korean. It needs to be an English-speaking school. And very often between our admissions offices, when we're full, we actually inquire if other schools have space. And so I think it's very important that there is a healthy dialogue between the foreign schools and between Invest Seoul to see how we can grow that relationship and how we can help companies that are thinking about investing in Seoul and move to Seoul to get that, to get the education that they can get. Because, you know, as you mentioned at the start, one of the first things that every family has in mind when they're thinking about moving abroad is, where are my children going to go? Are they going to be in a school where they're happy, safe, where they belong, and where they're going to learn all of those? And no one can work effectively and develop if they're thinking all the time about their children's education. So that is one of the first things that we need to provide the space for those children.
You made a good point about language there, right? Not only necessarily for the expat families that are deciding where to go, but actually also returning Korean expats. You know, the success of Korean Chevels is a lot of offices are opening overseas. You have a lot of longer-term Korean expats coming back with kids who have maybe studied in Dulwich and want to return to Dulwich, and that is an ever-growing sort of social phenomenon that we saw when we did our research. So that is a factor too, right? So sometimes those, and so I guess, you know, Goodman, we've talked about the challenges from a parental experience, you know, perspective. They've said, well, you know, sometimes education can be a challenge for us, I guess, whether they can get in, it's ultra competitive, maybe not enough spaces. You know, for you as the educator, how are your challenges? What's, aside from just availability, what are some of the challenges you would like to overcome in order to help, you know, create further investment in Korea?
I guess we're coming back to that original point of being able to further understand, you know, priorities within government and within local authorities, within the education authorities, and vice versa, of course, because of course that's a two-way street in terms of facilitating their understanding of what we do as a school. And I think together as schools, I think there's also room for growth. I mean, absolutely, I agree with both of you that whilst there have been and there are multiple initiatives whereby we do work together, it would be great to see the ways in which we collaborate as well increase going forward. Because I think that's a win-win situation for everybody, inevitably, I think. So, yeah, I mean, we have, you know, I think we all do. We have multiple waiting lists, you know, in different year groups. And of course, we would like to be able to welcome more families than we do. And of course, I guess the challenge, we each have our unique challenges, of course, in terms of the locations we have, one of the challenges we have of being a sort of inner city London, did I say London? Seoul school, sorry, I've been thinking about Dulwich College London today. An inner city school is that we have this a compact campus, and of course space is at a premium, land is at a premium in that central part of Seoul. And so we're looking at ways in which we could potentially expand our enrollment going forward. And of course, that partnership with government and with the education authorities is critical and key in that regard.
Right, and yourself, Anne, how do you guys see those? Maybe not necessarily the challenges. I think Goodwin did cover those, but where do you see the opportunity to work together with, an entity like the local government, or InvestSeoul, or indeed actually maybe the chambers? How do you envisage working with these groups?
I think all of the above. I think the greater number, the better, because I think we do share that same goal, and our objective is to provide greater opportunities for families moving to Korea for various reasons. And I think based on the current administration's goal of reaching 35 billion this year, and I think Seoul wanting to reach 30 billion in the next 6 years, that's a very ambitious goal to reach, and hopefully we'll get there. But in order to accommodate that, we need to have the infrastructure, meaning we need to build additional schools, and just the way you have space to expand, we do have space to expand, but I think we do, come across hurdles where, we need that space. And our admissions director back there can tell you the levels of frustration sometimes that we face, because we do have the families coming in, and some families, they have more than one child or even 2 children, and we have to turn them away because we don't have those 2 additional spaces because of the cap that we're, that we must meet per grade and per section. So I think in order to attract, these incredible companies that come into Korea, and I recently read the report released by AmCham, where we talk about Korea as an APAC regional headquarters, and it's no different than what we're discussing here, that we do need that input, we do need to work with the government, and be able to see the value behind international school infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think the AmCham report that you spoke to, and actually we also conducted a survey ourselves, and the top 3, decision-making sort of pain points or variables that are key for decision makers to move an office or create an office in terms of investment. Actually, 2 of them were monetary. One is, what is the taxation regime? That's important because their companies here to also make money. And then also, what is the business opportunity? And then the third one actually is around people, the schooling for theirs, for their employees, but also human talent, meaning how good are local employees, right? And I think Korea scores, of course, extremely highly on the capability of the local people, right? That's Korea's biggest asset, without a doubt. So actually, but then secondly, I think if the expats traveling over could speak Korean, maybe Korean schools become a great option, because their greatest asset is the people. The language makes that challenging, and so you guys become then critical. But I think the other 2 point to predictability, right? To having consistency in regulation, but also a regime that's predictable and able to be worked with, and regulations that can be explored and maybe organically developed when the need arises. And it seems like now there is that need. So I wonder, maybe you will have the pressure of wrapping it up. So, yeah, speaking to that one, because you went back to the word of exchange, is that right? Do you think that it is about looking at this organic development of Korea, including its regulations, to speak to how well it's doing in terms of FDI and that opportunity? And is that, if that's right, how do we move that forward from today?
That's a very good question, and that's a very hard question. I don't even know how to answer that, but yeah, absolutely. Yes, I totally agree with you in terms of accountability. Do we have to have it? Sorry. Then I forgot your question, I'm sorry. I lost the point.
So I think you mentioned exchange in terms of the need to work with the local government and also the local community. So I think on that theme of exchange, is that also how you see the need for these regulations? A lot of them, which are a little bit on the older side, also need to be developed and and that through is, I would imagine, something like beginning today with the dialogue. Is that?
Absolutely. I mean, in every aspect of life, dialogue is key, right? Open communication is key. And I guess I can speak for all of us to say that we are completely open for dialogue with local governments and just, being there and talk about education in any way that we can help. Because it is one of the aspects that will drive more foreign investment. And it is absolutely, as Kamandora suggested, it's a win-win, it's an exchange. Because foreign children who grow up in Korea and learn about the Korean culture and learn the language, because all of us have a very strong Korean language program, will go out in the world and continue the cycle to make Korea shine. And it's a very beautiful organic soft power for Korea to kind of create those global citizens that will make Korea shine globally.
You answered it perfectly.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're pretty much done in the last 5 minutes, but maybe we can go to the floor if anybody has a question.
Absolutely.
Would anyone like to ask a question to this esteemed panel? Oh, you're down.
Can I speak in Korean?
Yeah, I think that.
So can
Oh,
I
do you have a comment?
raise the mic to just for the
들리나요? 안 들리나요?
Please turn on.
길게 늘어서.
저희가 작년에 시장님이 이제 외국인 학교를 늘리는 것에 대해서 고민을 하게 됐는데 저희가 19개 학교의 충원율을 조사를 했는데 한 60%대밖에 안 됐어요. 그러다 보니까 이제 외국인 학교가 더 필요하느냐에 대해서 좀 논란이 있었는데 오늘 새 학교 말씀하신 거 보면 대기 인원도 있고 뭐 이런 식으로 해서 충분히 지금 풀로 차 있다고 얘기를 하시는데 그래서 어떤 학교는 이렇게 대기 인원이 있을 정도로 인기가 있고 어떤 학교는 뭐 정원에 한 반도 못 채우는 외국인 학교들이 있는데 그들 학교와 지금 있는 학교들의 차이가 어떤 점에서 발생하는 건지 좀 알 수 있을까요? 왜냐하면 저희가 이제 외국인 학교가 필요한지 아니면 더 늘려야 되는지 이런 거에 대해서 조금 더 고민을 해야 되기 때문에 좀 사실을 알고 싶어서.
So I think anyone who wants to correct me if I'm wrong, please do so. So you heard it, but
Yes.
So of course, we would like to address that. The broader question being that of course you guys are seemingly full, but maybe according to their understanding, it's actually more. If you look at it, it's a completeness of all the schools, 18, 19 schools. It's about running at about 60% capacity. So actually, maybe the schools that aren't full are just not here today. But so the first question is, assuming that is correct, which would be, they would have the numbers, what's the difference between, why are you guys full, but the other guys not full? And then, because their biggest point of contemplation is, what is the true need? And of course, based on today, no brainer, we need it, but based on their understanding of the broader market, actually, there is capacity. Is that a location? Is that a service group? What are your thoughts on that? And it's a real practical question.
Well, maybe if I can start, maybe Shakes. Thank you for the question. It's a great question, very interesting question. I think inevitably, looking, if you look at the international schools across Seoul, for example, they're quite diverse in nature. So they serve quite different markets, if you like, different populations of young people in terms of their needs. Of course, I'm a specialist in my own school, of course. But I know that what we, for example, share between the three of us is that our three schools are primarily English-speaking international schools. That's our focus. So I think that I suspect it probably it reflects the demand and the need that the international population coming into Korea, for example, maybe there's a greater need for English-speaking international education in that regard, and therefore that's where maybe the greater pressure points are lying in terms of demand. I suspect that might be the case. That will probably be a contributing factor. But that's an interesting statistic in terms of the number of places available across the entirety of Seoul. But I suspect probably it's about that relationship of availability and demand and the different nature of the different schools, I would imagine. Are my initial thoughts.
So, like, I didn't realize that was what the other schools are at 60% capacity.
I think when you look at it as a whole.
Oh, as a whole, okay. So I think I would have to kind of mention the point about quality, perhaps, right? Because I think the three schools, I'm not trying to criticize any other schools, but I think the three schools represented here, I think the fact that we are at full capacity, I think speaks volume about the demand that's out there for our particular schools. And I think that's the way I would have to kind of think about, that it is about quality at the end of the day. What kind of education are we providing for the students, for the people that are entering SFS, Dulwich, and Dulwich?
Actually, as a non-educationist, I think one point I think would be there are different ways to look at statistics, right? So one here is, wait a minute, if it's 40% available, you don't need more. The other way of looking at it is, why aren't people choosing that 40%? And if we go back, I think, to the decision-making of the parents sat in New York, or the executives sat in London or in Singapore, calling and saying, okay, I don't think the question is, how much capacity is in Seoul so I can think about where to put my kids? They say, I'd like to go to Dulwich.
Yeah.
Oh, it's full, you have no chance. Okay, I call someone in Shanghai, I'd like to go to Dulwich. No problem. The waiting list is not so long. So I think the issue here may be not about looking at just total net capacity and availability. It's actually also the appeal. And it comes to just pure market economics here, right? And the decision making ultimately is already borne out in the market is that you guys are full for a reason. And ultimately, these companies and their expats are often wanting to go here, right? So it may be that with more options, more high quality options will come, more high quality companies and expats will make the decision to come, I would think.
Yeah.
But I'm not an educationist.
Good point.
Any other question? I'm already finished now.
Question you have?
Sorry, I actually don't have a question. I just want to add on to what you're saying. My name is Ian. I'm actually Director of Admissions for White School. So I agree with everything they've just mentioned, but I think something else, we said English schools, English, we've said the quality, all of those things. But I think the other thing that many parents ask when they call us up and say, do you have space? They're asking for ID. So they do want to know, about the curriculum, and that is something that, unites those three seats we're talking about.
That's a very, very good point. Thank you.
Okay, and I think on that point, that very good point, I think we should wrap it up. So can we have a round of applause please for our panel? I think I kept the time.
Yes.
Also, I'm not a journalist. I'm going to sit down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And a round of applause for our monitor. Education from global talent is a good problem to have. This is something that we can all work together to achieve. So I think one of the issues, just to point out from a numbers point of view, is that our schools are actually internationally comparative, are actually small in size. At Dulwich, we are one of the smallest in our group of schools. Dulwich at 500 is also one of the smaller schools in its group, and even Seoul Foreign School is larger than us, but in comparatively internationally, where you have schools of 3,000 students in Shanghai and Singapore. So it's not just about the number of schools, it's also about the number of seats available in terms of high quality education. A couple of points and more on the numbers is we've touched a little bit on the regulatory environment. This is issues like the 1,095 days. I mean, basically, if somebody comes back and they spent 1 day less out of the country, they're not able to go to the school. So these are some of the areas. 30% quota is another regulatory issue. Strong links between community organizations and schools is extremely important to all of us. Every week we have some type of initiative of some student activity that needs to put money in the safe for wildlife funds and women's charities and lots of different other causes that our students put into. So the next, the point that was really clearly made there was that there's a huge link between the global talent that comes attached to foreign direct investment and the foreign FDI. And our next panel is that group combined. It is who we call parents of our students who we take care of. But for foreign direct investment, it's the global talent, it's the cornerstone of any investment that comes into Korea. So we have Jonathan Speak, who is co-CEO from Copenhagen Offshore Partners Korea, who's a proud parent at Dulwich. Copenhagen Offshore Partners is a world leader in offshore wind project origination, development, and construction of COP, is accelerating the energy transition through development of a 50 kilowatt project portfolio, which is a lot of electricity, 50 kilowatts. 1/3 of which represents floating offshore windmills. They are an industry pioneer that is group leading project development in new markets, including 4 projects currently under construction in Asia. And so I just wanted to give a brief idea about the size of investment that the global talent that comes to Seoul is working on. Our next panelist is Cristiano Meyrink. He is a banking executive with 20 years working for HSBC. He has a broad international experience with postings in Asia, Middle East, and Latin America, with a range of executive roles covering corporate banking, strategy, risk, and retail. He's a proud Dwight parent. And then Jim Knows, General Manager and Head of Symphorna Korea, which is a subsidiary of LVMH. He oversees overall business operations and spearheads the strategic direction and development. Jim has over 20 years of experience across multiple organizational functions, overseeing country and regional mandates. So that was just a brief snippet of every event at school. We meet those leaders in international investment in our school, and it just shows the importance of the community of people and families that attend our schools. And our moderator is Namju Cho, the Director of Communication and Marketing for Dulwich College, who is global talent in its epitome. We certainly bring out the panel to present.
Where I did not write that. All right, we're at our second panel of the day. I think the had really fascinating insights from the 3 schools, and we got a lot of sort of aggregate data and information from sort of their experiences and also what they've seen as a school. Now, today, here, we're going to really be hearing some personal stories from our parents, and just based on their experiences of moving. A lot of these 3 parents here that we have today are global citizens moving around a lot. I also just happen to be, have that experience, just having moved a lot growing up. And personally, just the international school that I was a part of in South America was really helpful in helping me adopt a new culture and language that I didn't speak a word of English or Spanish. So I think just having that experience, and that's part of the reason I was enjoying international school, is just giving that sense of community to the students and really helping to adjust to a whole new country and feeling that sense of home that I still cherish today. So also have friends around me and families that I see at Dulwich who also, as I said, move around a lot as part of their jobs, and seeing how hopefully we as a school provide that sense of community and belonging to help them adjust. So today, I'd really like to ask you about your respective experiences of moving to Korea and how you feel like the schools have sort of helped you, how you know the different experiences of looking and finding a school that was a right fit for your family, and not just to recruit you as global talent, but also onboard you, and also help you stay, because ultimately getting, as we heard from a lot of global mobility teams, just finding a new person to replace is just so much. It just takes retention is so important, and so. I guess maybe we could kick off the panel. I know there was a brief bios of all, but maybe share your, each of you can share, kind of introduce yourself, share your nationality, school your children goes to, affiliated company, and the number of years living in Seoul, and then also how long you've lived abroad, because some of you have significant overseas experience.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jun Yo. I am an ethnic Korean, but I'm Korean American-born Korean. I've lived abroad now for about 20 years. Started my international assignment in Japan. Later on to China, where I was living there for 13 years. And then most recently here in Korea for about almost 4 years now. My journey dealing with schools, international schools, is very close to my heart. If I go back a few years back, my daughters are 8 years old at Seoul Foreign School. And we were actually, many years ago, when they were young, around 3 years old, we were living in Shanghai. And they were happily attending, some of you may know it, Yuchang International School. It's a fairly well-known international school based in Hong Kong with 3 campuses in China and 1 in Silicon Valley. And so they were attending that school for a year. And we fast forward to January 2020, things were happening in the western part of China. And so I had a regional role, and I decided for my family, and given I could focus work from Korea, I decided to move to Korea for that reason. It was an abrupt move in early 2020. So we pulled our kids out of the international school. We moved to Korea. We actually moved to Songdo, because I felt that being close to the airport would allow me to travel still during that period. And we inquired placing my children, who were in pre-K at the time, into international schools. We went to 2 schools, probably know there's 2 schools there. Unfortunately, no space at all. And so we were in a very difficult situation. They were in a great situation in Shanghai, but they could not get into school. So we decided to enroll them into a bilingual kindergarten for 1 year. And then we actually went through a normal application process and eventually enrollment into SFS. I think that experience was firsthand for me, because I came from an area where we just saw a chart from Invest Korea. Shanghai has 45 schools, but there's only 300,000 foreigners in Shanghai. And this is pre-pandemic. The number's even lower. Whereas Korea has 50 schools, but I think the number was 2.2 million foreigners. And so you see this huge, and we mentioned there's maybe some capacity differences, but there's a huge disparity in terms of number and supply of schools. And I speak firsthand from my unique experience back in 2020. When we decided to pick SFS, I think for me it's more, not really what the school provides, it's really what I want my kids to be. And I want my kids to be able to accept, learn from other people from different backgrounds, different races, different socioeconomic levels. I also want them to be in a school where they can really unlock the love and passion to learn. And also just really live, in the case of SFS, Christian life or Christ-like values in the school. And so we picked SFS because we felt that was a great fit for us. And I consider SFS, my relationship with SFS school is a handshake, whereby if they can deliver this amazing learning experience, but also instill these key values in my children, then they'll be in a better place. And so, because it's a handshake, I try to also contribute to the schools. So I currently serve on the board. I've been a board member now for over 2 years at SFS, and it's been an amazing experience.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Cristiano. So I'm originally from Brazil. I've been an expat for about 15 years now. I've had a range of roles living in different countries. My first international experience was in Doha, in the Middle East. Then I lived there for 3.5 years. Then I lived in Jerusalem for about a year. We moved back to Brazil for 2 years. I went to Mexico City for 3 years, then Hong Kong for 3 years. And now we are in Korea, in Seoul, for the last 2.5 years. We are proud Dwight parents, and when we came in, great story by the way, and I kind of relate to that. The process of, and we've been, so this is my 6th country, and we keep moving, and my daughter was born in Doha, so every move after that, schooling is a priority in the decision making. And potentially the first thing that we look at when we move to another country. I also have a son with special needs, so that adds an additional factor in the decision making, and perhaps I would say maybe even takes precedent to my daughter, because that's even more challenging to find the right school or the right support. But speaking about both, I'm quite blessed that because of my employer program, then we do have support in finding a new school. So generally there's a company that engages with us, and they have a network of schools, and based on your feedback as to what kind of values or schooling approaches you prefer, they suggest a few options, and then you engage. But every time I'm in the process of moving to a new country and there is a potential transfer, that's the first thing we do, is what is the schooling environment, what are the options available, a little bit of the relevance of the schools and capacity and of the teachers and so forth in the environment. So in our experience, when we came to Korea, as I said, we did have a pre-listing of potential schools that were offered to us. And for us, an important decision making is the size of school. We tend to prefer smaller schools. We believe that that allows my daughter to have a more personalized teaching environment. And that was the case when we spoke with Dwight. We felt that they really focused on her. They really wanted to understand who my daughter Melissa is as a person. Of course, as with any school, you go through an interview, a discussion, and it was about an hour just about her and what she likes and what she is as an individual. And we really like that approach. And that allows us to very confidently come to Korea, because that part is addressed. My son is, of course, different, and we were able to find, with a lot of difficulty to be fair, but eventually we found a clinic, the only one that spoke English. So luckily there was one space, and we arranged something for him, and we're actually quite happy. So I would say, when I think about Korea, there are immense benefits and advantages in Korea, and already shared by other panelists. The quality of education here, just the standard quality of education in Korea is extremely high. And I think that to some extent increases the bar for international schools as well. And we felt that. We came from Hong Kong, and in Hong Kong, before we went to Hong Kong, we were already told, look, Hong Kong schools are great, and the education there is great, so don't worry, any school you go, your daughter's going to have great education. We came to Korea, and the bar is even higher. My daughter studies a lot, more than she did in Hong Kong. And to some extent, that's probably derived of the environment that she's in, and the class, and the kids, and of course the education. So that allows us to work in Korea with confidence that I know that my daughter's education is taken care of, as I'm sure for the other parents here as well.
Jonathan Spink, so I'm the co-CEO of Copenhagen Offshore Partners, which is a Danish offshore wind developer. So we tend to... Let's try that one. Okay, I'll start again. So I'm Jonathan Spink. I'm the co-CEO of Copenhagen Offshore Partners, which is an offshore wind developer. And we work globally around the world, and we set up offices. We don't have a lot of work in Denmark, but that is our headquarters. And then we go and we mobilise offices everywhere around the world. So I co-CEO our operations here with a very senior Korean gentleman, and the two of us try our best to build a new industry here in Korea. So I am the baby expat of this group, so I've only been expating for 1.5 years now. So I come out of Australia, Melbourne, Australia, and I've got 2 children, so 2 boys, 8 and 9 years old, at Dulwich. One's in year 4 and one's in year 5. My little guy, Isaac, he's got autism, which was an interesting thing to go through an interview process coming into Korea at the start. But in terms of where we come from in Australia, they went to the local public school. We lived on a lake in Melbourne, which was in bushland, so very green, very open spaced, lots of sports grounds, lots of facilities, and we got into Dulwich, which is a very compact school in central Seoul. But it's been wonderful. So the kids have adjusted really well, and they love the school now, which has been a really interesting transition to see 2 little Aussie kids come here and be able to adapt to that sort of situation. I will say our process to come here was, to get them into schools was very, very hard, I think as the other panelists indicated. So I'm the 2nd generation of expats for our company here in Korea. So we started an office here about 6 years ago, and people expated here, and it was a smaller group, and we came 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and everyone's like, schooling, it's very easy to get into. You don't have any worries. Our kids got in straight away into Dulwich or SFS, that's where everyone was going. But we're now about 30 expats here. And I was one of the first ones in that 2nd batch. And so we started applying for schools, Dulwich and SFS were our preferences at the start. So we put in our applications, and they said, you're a little bit out of sync with the timing that we assess applications, so we'll come back to you soon. So it's like, okay, I've signed a contract though, and I need to start a job in a couple of months, so what am I going to do with my kids? So then the panic lights turned on for my wife and I, and it's, all right, let's apply for a few other schools. So we applied for 5 schools. We paid our application fees, and we went into the process. And as I said, my little guy's got autism, so that also raised a red flag for a lot of the schools. A lot of the schools, I won't say it's the 3 that are represented here today. I think all 3 of those schools were wonderful in going through the process with our Isaac. But it was, we don't really know what to do with this. We need to meet him. So at the time he was a 7-year-old little boy, and he was getting interviewed about his autism and how he responds in situations, which was very confronting and very difficult. And then our other boy, who was 8 years old at the time, then the testing started on to get him a place, because places were really hard to come by. One of the schools made him get up at 3 in the morning to do an exam. He did the exam, and he's very smart, so he did really well. He did the exam at 3 a.m, and then 2 days later they said, actually, we don't have any places. So it's like, well, why would you make him do an exam at 3 in the morning if you don't have a place for it? So it was very much just a very strange process. And then we ended up getting accepted. One boy got accepted at one school, one boy got accepted at another school, but they didn't have places for the other boy. And of course, we are really panicking at that point about, am I going to come to Korea? Am I going to follow through with this job? Because schooling is important, because then it dictates where you're going to live as well. So we couldn't lock down a house until we sorted that out. But luckily we managed to get both boys into Dulwich, and it was a wonderful outcome. The kids have a wonderful experience there. And I think the key takeaway for me from all of this is, as an expat, I go to work every day, we go to work, we've got our lives at work, but my wife and my kids, their lives revolve around the school, particularly in a country like Korea, where it is culturally very, very foreign for Australians and a lot of Western societies, and there's not a lot of English spoken language, so you end up your lives are revolved around the school. So it's really important that you get into a school and a community that is aligned with your values, and I think that was a common theme with you gentlemen as well, and that it becomes safe and comfortable. And as I said, the experience to get there is hard, but I'm glad it worked out in our situation.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'd like to also ask each one of you, I think, since you mentioned you are a sort of a first-time kind of an expat, we can maybe start with you, and I'll also love to hear Cristiano and Jim's experience around how maybe the experience compares to some of the other countries you had to relocate to, just sort of the point of comparison. So I guess maybe for Jonathan, can you give us some examples of maybe how the family or the school, you said it revolves a lot around the school community. Can you give us some examples of maybe how you feel that some of the school activities or events and community has supported your family in settling down here as an expat, or the first-time expat?
Yeah. So coming into the school with my little guy with autism, it was wonderful to get a number of support services around him. So special reading groups, counselling services and other things, which it's amazing how much he's developed in the year since we've been here compared to what services are available in Australia. And that also helps with my wife and I. So we get brought in for a lot of the conversations and discussions to support him in that process. So that's brought us into the school a fair bit. And then there's parents associations as well. So there's a number of parent events where, again, we get brought in. Morning teas where we get to go into the classrooms to spend time with the kids in the learning environment. So we get to have that level of comfort that this is a wonderful school, we can see how they're developing, we can see what they're learning, and that connection is there. We get a chance to meet and mingle with other parents as well. And the schools have been really good with bringing community together as well. Foundation days and other events through the year. So I think there's about 5 or 6 that we've come in for through the year in addition to those things. I've joined the dad soccer group. It took me a while to get there, but I focused a lot of my first time on adjusting and getting used to the work environment. And now I'm trying to make some friends and branch out a little bit outside of work. So that's been good. My wife's doing Korean lessons at the school. So there's just all of these cooking classes at the school, and there's a lot of events where the family are just drawn into the school, and that becomes your cultural sort of community that gives you a connection to what you're used to.
Thank you so much. Cristiano, do you want to share a little bit maybe how you've lived in so many different places as an expat? How sort of that onboarding experience was for when you came here? Maybe just in comparison to, what were some of the things that were maybe easier? What were some of the things that you found a little bit more challenging?
Yeah, I came during the tail end of COVID. So I came at the tail end of COVID. So we moved in, it was October 2021. And the experience I had in the past was I was always able to travel before to the city I was going to move into, and at that time you meet schools and you go to different places that you intend to live, and that was always the process of getting on board into a school. I had that experience in getting to know before, and then come back. Of course, you already do the application and you get a place and you move with your family. In coming to Korea because of COVID, there was no return ticket to Hong Kong. Once you come, you cannot come back. It was closed at that time. So we flew out of Hong Kong with my wife, and we got into Korea. Now, the difference is exactly that we had to already agree with the school all through Zoom. Do the interview process and applications and confirmations, and then move and then you start the school year once you're ready here. So that was unique. But what we found in the case of Dwight at that time was the admission process was really good. As I said, the engagement with the visa was very much focus on her, and she was able to feel comfortable in joining the school. Again, she's a global citizen, so she was born and she moves every 2 years or 3 years. So for her, the process of moving to a new school is quite normal, and she's quite adapted to that. But it's always good that you're embraced. One thing that they did there was have a buddy. So she joined, and there was already a girl in her class. She's 13 now, but she was 11 at the time. So there was a girl in her class, which, by the way, was a neighbor of ours. They moved out, but it was neighbors. They were neighbors of ours. So, she kind of helped her in the transition. We also became friends with his parents, and that helped us get close to the school as well. There is a spring fair every year with international families bring in things from their own nationality, and they sell them, and proceeds goes for charity and for benefits to the school. So every year we participate. My wife makes cheese buns, like Brazilian cheese buns called pão de queijo, and we sell it in the fair, and it's great. We have a lot of fun. So we felt through that process, despite doing it by Zoom or not having an opportunity to come before, the school did a very good job in challenging times where there is no return back.
So just to be clear, you had to make a blind decision, right? So you mean not blind completely, but you weren't able to be here physically before you made the decision.
Yeah, correct. We had, again, we did have an advantage that there was a service provider that knew Korea and knew the schools, and she gave us guidance as to, based on our criteria and feedback, she gave us guidance on the schools that would fit our criteria. And again, maybe in line with what was mentioned in the prior panel about why they are always busy and packed. These 3 schools were part of that report as to options for us to choose from. So we have some information, but you don't have visual information. We don't know Korea. We've never been to Korea before. So you're a lot dependent on the information that you get online, of course, and the interviews and discussions that you have. So that's what we went through. Perhaps maybe it's worth mentioning as well that for my son, I have a 10-year-old son who was there, like a 10-year-old son with special needs. So in his case, and the school was trying to accommodate, and we appreciated that. But his condition is quite severe. And so a schooling environment for him is not necessarily the best environment. So in the end, we were able to work with a therapy clinic that speaks English, and that provides him care, which is actually, and again, I think another highlight of Korea, probably the best service we've had so far, and another important aspect of us being in Korea that we enjoy.
Thank you so much for sharing. Jim.
Sure. So I think for me, we were in China. We were in Shanghai. My kid's 3 years old, in a pre-K program. If I were to compare and contrast my experience in China versus here in Korea, I would say in Korea there are many more opportunities to be part of an active community. In our school in China, press is being
educational environment and experienced expat parents in Seoul. Maybe any one of you can take it. We do have limited time. Maybe who would like to take that one?
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe controversial, but in talking to a few parents, one thing that I've received feedback on, and I know that the schools really try to create an international environment and integrate everyone, but there may be cases where, and I know that there is a restriction on 30% Koreans in the class or in the school, but there may be cases where the classroom is not that diverse. And what may happen sometimes is that then the language, not in the classroom, but at the playground, is not English, right? And that may also, place non-Koreans, in a little bit of isolation. So I do know of a parent recently that we actually arranged a play date with my daughter because her daughter's class is mostly of Korean heritage, and she was not able to make quite a lot of friends because of that. So maybe just coming to the schools that are here, that that diversity is really, really important. And again, and I know you strive for that, and it's part of the objectives across, but that's just something that we need to be also mindful of.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Just a quick recap. Just a good point about celebrating diversity, but also being inclusive in the way that we approach diversity would be really important. So thank you for that, Christiana and Jim.
When I look at the student body and how they spend their times after school and on weekends, I see a very big dichotomy, because you have in one bucket or one group, you have kids going to international schools, but then their after school weekends will be just like any other Korean student, going to after school, cram school, hagwon. Whereas the other group is more so taking more the international, let's say Western, for lack of a better word, type of after school, more activities, cultural, arts, whatever not. And I think that type of friction, I don't say friction, but there's going to be a sense of FOMO or fear of missing out if you don't do the after school learning program. And I think there's an opportunity for international schools here to really address that, to say, you can do what you please, do what makes your child happy, but don't have this fear that you're missing out if you're not studying until 11 p.m. with a tutor, or going to the best local hotline. And I think that's something that we, as international schools, we can do a better job in addressing.
Absolutely agree. I mean, that's something that I think we also grapple with. And I think some of our parents also feel there's definitely FOMO, but there's also an element of, if I don't do this, I'm going to be perceived as not the best parent that is as engaged in my child's education. At least in the Korean context, there's that layer of nuance and maybe slight judgment. So I think it's something that our parents also grapple with. So thank you for addressing that. It's finding that, striking a balance and really making them feel like it's not something that's needed, because that's something that our academic staff tell our parents all the time, and yet we do see that as well in some cases. So thank you so much for sharing your personal stories and rich kind of anecdotes on how the schools have helped you kind of create a community, find the best fit school for your child's needs, and how the schools have supported these expat families when you first moved, and also to kind of adjust your families and your spouses in sort of a new environment that you've been a part of. So thank you so much again for your time and for sharing your stories. And I think we're going to be moving to the next panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Hamju. Right, so I think very much to just really quickly sum up is we see the role that international schools play in recruiting global talent, onboarding global talent, and one of the key elements is retaining global talent, because first priority is somebody's child. So friendship groups, academics, all of the struggles that everyone goes through in school is the key priority. So by having quality international schools, we are helping the global talent both balance that home life, homework situation. So thank you all very much for sharing your personal experiences and very much emphasizing the sense of community that exists at all your schools. I'm going to switch it up a little bit rather than read out biographies, because I think all of our panelists will introduce themselves. Our next panel is the Business Chambers, and our monitor is going to be Cyril Bazin, Director of Communications and Marketing. I've stuck with the monitor concept. So if Lucinda, Felix, and Busan would come up from the chambers.
I speak from, is it on? It's on, okay. I speak from experience when I say we've had great panelists. So I'm sure the pressure is on for you guys, but no pressure. Okay. So maybe we can start with, can you introduce yourself? And so yourself personally, and also your chamber, and maybe give a bit of information about how many members you have, and what, list a few companies. That would be, yeah, sure, yeah.
This is the mic. I need to speak loudly. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, I have a loud voice, so this is not going to be a problem for me. I'm Lucinda Walker, Executive Director at the British Chamber of Commerce in Korea. I first came out to Korea in 2007. And I met my husband, and I always say I came out to Korea and I fell in love with my husband and I fell in love with Korea. I really love living here, and since 2007 have been trying to live here again. So I did 10 years with Standard Chartered, and then my husband and I and our daughter moved back to Korea in 2019 with Standard Chartered, and then I got a job at the Chamber in 2021. British Chamber of Commerce in Korea, we've been in existence since 1977. We have around 170 members. Actually makes us one of the smaller chambers here today, but we try and be very active and give lots of good value to our members. In terms of who our members are, actually quite a lot of them are here today. So we have a real range in terms of financial institutions, pharmaceuticals, offshore wind companies, although not Copenhagen, but some of the other offshore wind companies. And the international schools are a really big, important part of our membership. So we, through them, get to learn about what do parents think about when their kids are coming to the school, and then we also learn about what do businesses think about when choosing to invest in Korea, and how important education is. Yeah, I'll hand over to my colleagues.
Yeah, Felix Berkowski, I'm the Vice President of the Korean-German Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We have been established in 1981, and we have around close to 500 members. So we are, I guess, also a member of the international community, and especially for the Korean-German community, together, of course, also with the international schools, including the German school here. We try to play a role. Our members are quite diverse. We have the so-called hidden champions, the SMEs that are relatively innovative but you've never heard of. And then we, of course, also have a couple of bigger companies like the automotive industry, the chemical industry, and the industry that is in the sort of supply chain for semiconductors here in Korea. So everything, I would say, manufacturing related German companies are involved. And Korea is also a very important export or trade partner for Germany. Over 33 billion euros trade volume has been steadily going up. So there is a lot of exchange between Germany and Korea. And also, I'd like to say we've talked a bit about the community here, but I think also Korea's soft power has reached Germany. So the colleagues from the German embassy tell me that many Germans in Korea, in Germany actually, are studying Korean now. So I've been in Korea for 9 years now, and when I came here initially, I met some of the corporates who said, oh, my company sent me here, I have no idea about Korea. And now I'm meeting people who say, oh, I wanted to come to Korea. So I think a few things have changed there. I'm sure that the families, or also the children of those families who are entwined with Korean culture, have had more of an effect to why Korea is suddenly on the map more than before.
I'd like to speak in Korean because we have a Korean audience, so we have excellent interpreter, so speaking Korean. 저는 주한 유럽 상공회의소에서 하고 있는 김보상이라고 합니다. 유럽 상공회의소는 여러분도 아시다시피 유럽 기업들, 저희가 커버하고 있는 나라 수는 EU 27개국하고 그 다음에 UK 그리고 에타 컨트리라고 있습니다. 유로피안 트레이드 어소시에이션 4나라가 있는데 거기에는 스위스land, 그 다음에 아이슬란드, 노르웨이, 리텐슈타인 이렇게 해가지고 총 32개국의 그 이슈들을 저희가 다루고 있습니다. 그리고 예전에는 80년대 중반에 유로피안 유니언 챔버였고요. 이게 2012년도에 유로피안 챔버로 바뀌었습니다. 저는 2012년도에 조인을 했고요. 원래는 저는 외교부에서도 일을 했었고, 그리고 한국산업은행이라는 곳에서 일을 했었습니다. 그리고 지금 제가 주로 하는 거는 이 규제와 관련된, 여기 한국에 진출해 있는 외국 기업들이 전부 다 한국의 법을 따라야 되고 한국 규제에 영향을 받기 때문에 어떻게 보면 이제 저희 나라는 로비스트가 인정이 안 되는데 저희는 어떻게 보면 이제 어드보케이트를 주로 하는 단체라고 보시면 됩니다. 저희 회원사들의 그러니까 이익을 저희가 대변해 주는 역할을 하고, 그리고 이제 그 정부 쪽이나 아니면 국회 쪽에 저희 의견을 전달을 하고, 그리고 뭔가 이제 공통분모를 찾아서 규제를 해결하고 하는데 저희가 이제 주력하고 있습니다.
Thank you. On that note, as you said, you act as advocates for these companies. What kind of challenges do companies mention?
Right. We have 저희는 백설 white paper, we publish white paper annually. So 백설 출간하고 있는데 저희가 그 21개 인더스트리 커뮤니티가 있습니다. 거기에는 예를 들어서 자동차위원회도 있고, 그다음 화학위원회, 식품위원회 등등해서 21개 인더스트리에 관련된 그 위원회가 있고요. 거기에는 이제 데디케이트된 그 커뮤니티 헤드가 있어서 그 분들이 예를 들어서 그 각각의 회원사의 그 위원회 소속의 회원사들하고 이제 의견 교환하면서 저희가 이제 푸시페이퍼라든지 아니면 레코멘데이션을 정부 쪽에 전달하는 거라고. 그래서 만약에 교육과 관련된 이슈가 있다 그러면 저희가 적극적으로 이제 그 지방 정부인 서울시와 그리고 만약에 교육부하고 같이 의논할 그런 이슈들이 있다 그러면 저희가 그런 그 플랫폼으로서의 역할을 해주는 거예요. 이렇게 서로 다 대화를 할 수 있는. 그리고 그다음에 국회하고도 저희가 이제 계속 일을 하고 있어서 국회 쪽에서도 많이 국회 쪽에서 풀어야 되는 문제라면 저희가 국회의원들을 만나서 저희 의견을 전달하고 하고 있습니다.
Yeah, actually the European chambers included ECCK and BCCK. We also collaborate, I think, at least once a year, actually more often, but there's one survey that we do where we actually ask our companies what's going well, what's not going so well, what could be better. And so that is, I think, gives a good insight on an annual basis how our members of corporates or companies feel like. And in recent years, usually the amount companies who said, okay, the Korean market has become increasingly important for us has gone up to, I think, 50-60% in that range recently. So that is an interesting finding. And on top of that, So the Korean German Chamber of Commerce and Industry, we're also part of a global network of 150 chambers of the German network. And they also do another survey every 6 months. And the recent results to say the 3 challenges that German companies in Korea are facing, 2 of them are actually related to human resources. Like one is demand, but that's a problem for every company, regardless of Korean or foreign companies. The other 2 issues were HR related. One topic was finding qualified or like the fight for qualified talents, right? Because maybe also because of demographics, it's becoming increasingly difficult for companies to compete for talent. And we used to do, or some of our members are doing also like surveys, in terms of HR surveys, okay, how can companies attract talent? And salary is one thing, but actually what companies are trying to compete with is also like the fringe benefits, and schooling and providing an infrastructure for that is one of the key points that I think on the one hand Korea can offer quite a bit, and also where it's certainly a challenge for many companies to say, especially to the top talents, to say, okay, come work for us in Korea. It's not just a great job, but there's something for all of the family members here. So I think that's some of the challenges as well. And of course, generally regulations are always difficult. Korea adapted German law, so that makes some things complicated. Apologies for that. But yeah, we are trying to also, of course, with our partners, the embassies and the other chambers, to talk about, okay, which regulations make sense and which are more making businesses more difficult.
So as you mentioned, and maybe Lucinda, you can take that one, Korea is definitely on the map globally. No one, everyone knows BTS, Blackpink, all of the Netflix shows, everyone, it's completely on the map. So it is clear that Korea is a real window of opportunity for becoming a hub. How does Seoul in Korea currently, where do we stand in terms of the perception from global businesses, and what are the projections?
That's a really interesting question. Certainly, we are seeing more companies interested in Korea. I think not only Koreans Korea's attractiveness in terms of K-pop, but also sort of what's going on in terms of China, and people feeling that maybe Japan is a saturated market, or they're already in Japan, makes Korea a really attractive market for businesses. So businesses are definitely interested in Korea at the moment. And we'll view it not, whereas before it would just be one of the branches or subsidiaries, actually now they're thinking, okay, could this actually be a regional hub? Could we place people here? One of the areas for the UK which is really strong in Korea is luxury and retail, and people now see Korea as the sort of jumping off point for Southeast Asia. So not only could this be like a regional hub for Northeast Asia, actually it could be a regional hub for Asia, because if the brand is successful in its launch here, if it gets worn by the K-pop influencers, then suddenly it starts selling out in Southeast Asia as well. So people are definitely interested in Korea. And I think, the panel before us talked about, like, for a expat settling here in Korea, where does the schooling rank for them in importance when they're that decision making? And that it ranks very highly. But I hear about this from our members, from businesses, and in terms of, are they going to open a branch or an office or a regional headquarters here? At that point, education is a factor, but it's maybe not the most important factor at that point. But where it does become important is if the brand is going to, or a business is going to decide to stay here, and if it's going to decide to grow here. Because if they've had expats come out here and they have had a bad experience, the family is not settled, the partner has not been able to find work, The kids have not found the right school. They felt isolated. They're in a business that's all Koreans and there's one non-Korean there. And that expat has then decided to finish his contract early and go back after they've invested all the money to bring the expat out. That is not going to make them want to think, okay, we're going to establish a regional headquarters. That's going to think, okay, like, maybe we should just have local staff here. And I think if you want it to be a regional headquarters, that's when you're looking for diversity. That's where you're looking for people who understand the region. So, yeah, education maybe isn't the point at the start of the discussion about setting up a business here. That's more about how much money are we going to make. But it becomes a really important factor in, are we going to stay here, are we going to invest, and are we going to grow and maybe even become regional?
Maybe if I can just add to that role as a regional hub, also the B2B field is quite crucial for German companies, especially the ones who are maybe not that large, who've done excellent business with one of the bigger Korean companies. And as you know, they are global players, so if Samsung, Hyundai, and so on go abroad, they take the suppliers with them. So often with the situations that German companies are managing projects in Europe that are much closer to their, headquarters, but the decision makers are based in Seoul, so they must be here as well. So I think it counts also for our companies.
저도 말이 있는데, 저는 한국이 지정학적으로 매우 중요한 곳이거든요. 교두보 역할도 하고요. 한국이 매우 지정학적으로 중요한 곳이어서 그 헤드쿼터에서 보기에는 한국의 아시안 퍼시픽 헤드쿼터를 두고 싶어도 결국은 말씀하신 대로 예를 들어서 그 다른 제반 요건이 다 돼 있을 때도 보통 보면 이제 그 그룹 내에서도 그 탤런티드 돼 있는 사람들 있잖아요. 뭔가 리더십도 있고 이런 분들을 보낼 때 그분들이 거절하는 경우들이 영왕 있습니다. 이런 교육 인프라스트럭처가 잘 안 돼 있거나 해서 결국은 순대가 얘기하신 대로 이 마지막 그 누가 거기에 그 한국에 갈 건지를 결정할 때 결국은 그게 걸림돌이 될 수 있다는 게 중요한 사실인 것 같습니다.
So on that topic, if you were to choose one important factor that would need the City of Seoul's attention, what would it be? Yeah, one important factor to consider, to focus on.
I think it's not one important factor, but I think it's the whole ecosystem or the whole community for the people who are going to be based here, the diversity. So, for the education and the community around that, I would also say visas or the possibility of getting visas for partners who are traveling, or also for international students. There's loads of great international students coming out and studying in Korea at the moment at the universities, and they want to work here in Korea, and that's really attractive for businesses to get access for global talent, but securing visas is challenging. So I think visas for the partners who are traveling, visas for international students. Also, in terms of education, like a recognition that it's, the world is changing. It's not just expats who are coming here to Korea and working. There are lots of people like me in Korea who have married Koreans and who have had children who are Korean citizens and who have kids who are in the local education system. And the local education system is global in its outlook as well. It's not just the international things. Creating that diversity in its ecosystem. And I think that's one, but I want to add one more thing, because it's something that we at the Chamber, and I know the Embassy as well, feels very strongly about, as do our partners. But also diversity in gender equality in the workplace is really important. I think one of the things that companies look at when deciding either to invest in Korea or even to invest in Korean companies is what does that ESG profile look like? What is their gender diversity? And Korea is top of OECD in the number of women who graduate from university and bottom in the gender pay gap. And if there is more that is done to boost gender equality in the workplace, that would also be really attractive for multinationals looking to invest in Korea.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to ask for things or criticize things. So I think, first of all, I want to start with complimenting Seoul as becoming increasingly international. So it's a safe place to live, and I think people are generally very welcoming. At least after 9 years, I felt very home here. I think the infrastructure for this is important, and I think there are already quite some really good things in place for the, let's say, infrastructure of the international community. And I think it's also important. I mean, it's good. What I like about Korea is for many expats, yes, there's always the expat bubble, but there are connections. It's quite integrated with local. Actually, I have to confess, I'm also married to a Korean. No kids though. But anyway, so I'm not biased here. So I think to foster this international connections, and I think yes, there are of course cultural differences, and education plays probably a much higher role in Korea than compared to Germany perhaps, and trying to bridge that, to facilitate that is not easy. So I think when it comes to how can we become more international, how can we maybe attract more talents, regardless of the age of students or CEOs. I think some aspects are overly regulated, especially when it comes to labor law. It's a bit of a tricky situation for many corporates or many senior company heads who struggle to adjust to the way how companies are run here and how it is different sometimes from other international places. Yeah.
저는 한국 사람으로서 제가 드릴 수 있는 말씀이 뭐냐면 한국 그 학교 당국이 너무 보수적인 것 같아요. 좋은 국제학교가 한국에 진출할 수 있도록 뭔가 좀 개방적으로 이렇게 접근을 해야 되는데 보면은 너무 보수적이고 한국 교육이 옳다는 생각에 너무 이렇게 집착을 하는 것 같아요. 그래서 지금 더리치나 드와이트나 뭐 서울 포렌스쿨이나 많이 들어와서 좋은 학교들이 그 좋은 시스템을 한국 그 교육 당국한테 많이 선보이고, 그리고 한국 교육 당국도 뭔가 그런 것들 많이 받아들여서 좀 더 이제 국제 학교가 서울에서 활성화될 수 있게 된다 그러면 보다 더 경쟁적인 그 구도가 될 테고, 그러다 보면 이제 한국 학교들도 많이 배울 수 있을 것 같습니다. 그래서 저는 한국의 그 학교 당국의 뭔가 이 퍼스펙티브를 좀 바꿔야 된다는 생각을 좀 많이 하고 있습니다. 교육 시스템이 결국은 지금 시대가 변하면서 새로운 많은 것들을 배워야 되는데 제가 한국인으로서 느끼는 거는 뭐냐면 그렇지 못하다는 생각을 많이 하거든요. 그래서 될 수 있으면 좋은 국제 학교들이 한국에 많이 진출을 하고, 그렇게 진출할 수 있도록 교육 당국이나 아니면 국회 쪽이나 좀 더 개방적인 입장에서 받아들이고, 그리고 그거를 저희가 배워서 뭔가 좀 더 진취적인 그런 그 교육 환경을 만들어야 된다고 생각합니다.
I'm not an expert on the business, but more on the education side, and I believe we are definitely seeing these changes with the partnership between the Ministry of Education in Korea and the IB. So there is definitely a step forward to move to a more progressive way of learning and inquiry-based curriculum.
Sure.
So I think that's definitely a step forward. I would love to open the floor to some questions. We have about 5 minutes left. Any questions? Yes. I am looking at you, but you don't have to.
예, 질문이라기보다는 서울시 정책에 대해서 홍보를 하려고 합니다. 저희가 이제 7월 달부터 이 정책이 크게 바뀌는데요. 현재는 그 외국인 학교 업무를 제가 맡고 있는 이제 외국인 투자 관련 부서에서 지금 진행을 하고 있습니다. 그런데 저희가 서울시에서 7월 1일부터 이민 정책이나 외국인 정책에 대한 전반적인 업무를 맡을 새로운 국을 만듭니다. 거기에 이제 여성에 있는 외국인 다문화 업무나 아니면 이제 이 글로벌 센터 업무, 외국인 학교 업무. 그러니까 이게 이제 외국인 학교가 단순히 이제 투자 유치를 위한 수단이 아니라 이제 서울이 글로벌 도시로 나가기 위해서 이제 정주 환경 자체를 바꾸는 큰 틀에서 지금 바꾸려고 고민을 하고 있고요. 그와 더불어서 이제 외국인 유학생을 대폭적으로 이제 유치하려고 지금 시장님 생각하셔갖고 그런 문제, 또 외국의 인력 문제들 이런 것들에 대해서 전반적으로 이제 글로벌 도시 서울이 나가기 위해서 외국인 정책이 전반적으로 다 변화됩니다. 네, 하나만 더 말씀드리자면요. 저희가 외국인 투자 업무를 하고 있는데 이제 기존에 피약이라고 해서 이제 외국인 글로벌 투자 기업들하고 하는 서울시 정책 협의체가 있었는데 그게 작년에 없어졌습니다. 근데 이 시장님이 없애고 나니까 이제 새롭게 없애는 후회하시면서 지금 서울에 있는 주요 상공회의소들하고 외국인 투자 기업들하고 다 연계해서 그 서울에 투자한 외국인 기업들하고의 협의체를 새로 만들려고 지금 생각 중에 있습니다. 그래서 오늘 오신 분들이 적극적으로 서울시에서 이런 협의체를 만들 때 적극적으로 참여해 주셨으면 감사하겠습니다.
I'm curious to hear the Chamber's thoughts about, with some of the geopolitical shifts that are happening in Hong Kong and some of the rising costs in places like Singapore that used to be the top FDI destination in Asia. I know there's been some talk about trying to make kind of Korea and Seoul the regional hub for a destination. How do you, and there's this window of opportunity right now where all these things are happening kind of in the whole FDI ecosystem, and how can Seoul and Korea at large seize this opportunity, and what are some thoughts that you have about kind of where we are in that window of opportunity that may, it's a very short window, will it be around still 5 years from now? We don't know. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that.
So I think Korea and Seoul are doing a lot of really good things on that front already. I mean, the fact that we have Invest Seoul and that they're very active in going out and speaking to companies and doing roadshows and visiting, doing overseas visits and telling people about the opportunities that are here in Korea. Plus, the packages that make it easier to land, plus the recruitment support. I think all of that really, helps. And when we go out and we also talk to companies overseas, they will say that the support they get from Korea and is different to what they get from other countries. So I think they're doing a lot of really good things already. I would go back to Korea is a very homogenous society, and in terms of recruitment and talent, as was said in the start, like if you want to come here and set up a branch that focuses on the Korean market, you don't really need any expat staff because the staff here in Korea are fantastic. But if you want to be outward focusing and regional, then that is the point where actually having either Koreans who have lived overseas or people from other countries come in is really important to developing that global mindset and linking these regional hubs with the rest of their group. And that is where education and the education opportunities come in, because it's important for these expat families, it's important for returning Koreans, and it's important for providing the talent that's going to come up into these regional headquarters as well. So I do think like a lot of the stuff that has been said today really relates to that regional hub question, and you know, doing great, but we can do more to promote international education. That would be even better for Korea.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree. I think with geopolitics, there has also been a bit of a shift on the German mindset to be less focused on China, also in terms of businesses. So we see that also that there are more high-level visits from Germany. Later next month or June, we have our Minister of Economics visiting. Of course, he's also going to China, but he's coming to Korea. They used to sort of skip over Japan and Korea, so that's certainly changing. Last year we had our president here, and the chancellor, and our foreign minister. So Korea is on the map, and not just on the political mindset, but also on the corporate mindset. And I think Seoul is already an excellent opportunity and destination, and there are great incentives you have, not just in Seoul, also in other regions, these free economic zones with excellent, not just incentives, but also teams that take care of these foreign companies, advise them. So that is a great infrastructure. But now I'm not just speaking about attracting international talents, even Korean talents is sometimes difficult when you go outside of Seoul. If you have a factory somewhere in the more industrial areas, people say, well, my family's in Seoul and that's where the schools are. And how can I find a proper or even international school outside of Seoul? So I think that's a bit of a challenge sometimes, to also for companies to attract talents, not just international, but even Korean top talent.
제가 이제 많은 그 외국인 CEO나 매니징 디렉터하고 얘기하다 보면 지적하는 게 있어요. 뭐냐면 그 한국의 그 정책의 일관성이 없다, 혹은 정책의 불확실성이 너무 높다라고 하는 지적을 많이 하시는데, 결국은 정책의 불확실성이라든지 일관성이 없다라고 느껴서 투자에 뭔가 투자를 꺼리는 그렇게 되는 이유는 뭐냐면 이 언어적인 것도 크거든요. 예를 들어서 법이 바뀌면 그 법이 바뀌는 거에 대한 예고라든지 어떻게 법이 바뀔 건지에 대한 그런 안내 같은 것들이, 그리고 그 법을 바꾸는 배경 같은 것들이 잘 설명이 안 되니까 더더군다나 더 큰 불확실성을 느끼고 그 투자를 하는데 좀 이렇게 꺼리는 이유가 되거든요. 그래서 제가 바라건대 그 정책의 불확실성이라든지 일관성을 못 가지고 계속 이렇게 바꿔나가는 거는 어떤 필요가 있어서 그렇거든요. 그런 필요가 예를 들어서 엑스퍼트한테 잘 전달이 되고 그러려면 교육도 상당히 중요하다고 봅니다. 그래서 그 한국에서 만약에 정말 리저널 허브이 되겠다고 그러면 그런 그 언어 교육, 예를 들어서 이 법이 바뀔 때 그걸 잘 한국 법을 영어로 잘 전달할 수 있는 그런 능력을 갖추도록 이제 국제학교가 그걸 도와줄 수 있는 거고요. 그리고 그 한국이 지금 한국말을 주로 쓰고 영어를 이제 예를 들어서 그냥 세컨더리로 쓰기 때문에 저는 개인적으로는 만약에 법이 그 바뀐다 그러면 그 모든 법이 다 거기에 따라서 영어로도 다 법치가 돼야 된다고 생각하고, 그런 교육들은 사실은 이 국제학교가 한국에 들어와서 이렇게 많이 이제 그런 것들을 교육을 함으로써 좀 개선될 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 이상.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much to our panelists. Right, so we've had a great discussion today. The afternoon's gone very quickly. I think everybody will all have our own takeaways from the day, and I hope we will use the reception as an opportunity to talk about maybe some ideas that have been brought up, new initiatives that have been launched, and have an exciting engagement in terms of how we can continue to collaborate further. I'm just going to tell you a few of my takeaways. I think the outlook for investment in Seoul sounds good to fantastic. The global changes that are occurring, the rise of Korean culture has been taking the world by storm, and the market prospects that Korea offers us are very attractive. There are capacity constraints in many of the schools. There may be a need for greater market liberalization so that supply can meet demand. There may be schools that have a low capacity, but there are certainly schools that have a high capacity. A quick way to fix that is loosen regulation and let the market sort itself out. There's a link between attracting and onboarding and retaining talent with the quality of international schools that's available in the country. Global talent plays a critical role in attracting FDI, as we've heard throughout the day. Very excited to hear about this new council and new structure that's being set up at SMG, and we certainly would like to participate as much as possible to work with you on how to continually improve the international working environment in Seoul. So again, let's thank all of our panel and moderators. Many organizers from Dulwich, Dwight, and Seoul Foreign School, from GK Korea, from the British Embassy. So thank you very much for all of our. So this is going to wrap up our roundtable part of the event today. It's now time to move up to the celebration upstairs. We'll be taken upstairs by BCCK and the marketing team. I want to point out that Ambassador Cooks will be at the reception and will be speaking at about 5:30, followed by a National Assembly member and someone from